there were in fact 4 photographs which all of us gave at least 2 votes to. So they're either first, second or third in our list, those 4 photographs. And then we decided that we would choose the winning photograph from those. Obviously we just choose the winning photograph from those 4. So it wasn't that these 4 were the only ones that got votes, but they were the only ones that got duplicate votes and we focused upon. There wasn't a tree there, but I would argue you've double exposed here, you've constructed an image, it's very much, and obviously it's a manipulated, constructed image. Why not use your Lightroom, Photoshop, whatever you use, program, and just nick a bit of this and stick it in there? Because this is a photograph which is not about realistic integrity, it's a manipulated image which is trying to communicate in that way, so why not go a step further and just balance the composition out a bit? That would be my personal argument. So we all like this one for the reason that it ticked all the boxes, and well, I felt, the others were less concerned I think with the white hole, but the white hole was perhaps the technical fault. And what do you do about these sorts of patterns? There's a bit of patterning here. Well, again, you could break that up by using your computer software. But we like this picture. We like that. Yeah, this one was good. That's what photography is about, isn't it? We look at a subject, we take it in personally, and in a way we send it back out again, having personalised it. And what we're trying to do in that process is also make it unique, because there's no point in replicating a picture that's been done by someone else, identically the same. So the fact that you're personalising something, you're responding to it in an emotional, intellectual, whatever way, and then you're trying to produce a unique picture, is easy to say but difficult to do. But then I do feel that once you put it back out, what you feel about it has got to be communicable. And so when we looked at this photograph, we all felt something from it. And I think it's because this withering plant, which is dead, and the muted colours, and there's sort of 2 sets of colour here, aren't there? There's the muted mauvey greys of the plant fabric, and then you've got the green, fortunately out of focus background, which is framing it all. So this is quite a sombre picture, to be honest with you. It's quite dark, in the sense that this is decaying, this is a process of decay. But there's lovely textures in here and a really nice arc coming over the top. Key thing is that it doesn't have a central point of focus. Where does the eye go when you look at that? You know, what are you drawn to? You know, here you've got your fox, there's very little else in the frame, you're looking at the fox and then the fox is looking down at the ground. So my eye, when I look at this, goes to the fox and then it goes and it points nicely down to this point here. And I want to know what the fox is sniffing, because my eye's being led by the shape of the picture and what's going on in it to this point. That's the central point of focus. When we look at this one, where's the central point of focus? Well, it doesn't always need one, does it? So the whole point of this photograph is all taking place in this one area here. We're drawn to that marvellous moment, which is perfectly cool, of the bird reaching in. I quite like the fact that the adult bird is anonymous. You can't see its face, you can't see its eye. You can see what it is, obviously, through the patterning of blue. Because that again concentrates all the interest on this young bird that's framed in this lovely hole. And it's got lovely textures. This is not a brand new spanky nest box. This is an old one with little cracks in, and the wood texture and patterning on there is lovely. Thing is, all of that central point of focus is going on here, and my question would be technically, what is that part of the photograph that's above my hand offering this image? You know, that top third of this photograph is not adding anything to it at all. In fact, you've got all this colour here, got this bit of colour here, there's no colour up here, you've got that out of focus piece of wood, looks like a piece of wood there. So for me, that's all dead space. And I found that a little bit distracting when I was looking into this photograph, because I wanted my eye to be drawn, just as the fox draws my eye, into this one point. I think there's a lovely shape of the blue tip coming around, these colours complement it and here, but I'd have cropped it, there's no doubt, cut the top off of that personally. Now, the other 2 judges were less concerned with the technical construction of the picture. I don't mean that in a patronising way, but as I said, they're not photographers, so they're not precisely analysing. But what I did say to them was, when they remarked that to them it didn't matter as much, because here was the beauty of this moment, and they were able to see that, is that when we're taking photographs, from my point of view, this bit here, is as important as that bit. For me, every single bit of the frame has to work for it. If one piece of the frame is failing to work for the picture, then it's not as good as it could be. So then they said to me, but how, when you're taking a photo, if you're snapping a moment like that lasts a fraction of a second, how are you concentrating on what's going on up there? And there were two answers to that. And one is you make very quick decisions by looking around the frame, and invariably when I'm pressing the button I'm looking more here than I am there, because I've kind of figured out what might be going on there. And the other thing is that in advance of pressing the shutter, whilst you're waiting for the bird to come, presumably you must have been, because this wouldn't have been easy to catch, then I'm constantly analysing the frame and I'm thinking how my subject's going to work. So this one, the other two maybe loved it. I thought there was a technical limitation with the top of it. Brings it to this last picture. And this last picture is all about the colour, of course. It's all about the composition. It's all about the way that we're invited down this lovely old lane. Again, one of the judges, she said, wasn't it great that this path was all bumpy and not a tarmac one that was so smooth, and it had beautiful texture, and that matched in with the trees. The trees, of course, are making this wonderful cavern. You can see through the trees, which is great, so therefore you get a sense of where that figure's going. But there's a narrative taking place here. This person is travelling through there. And also there's a sense of time and place. They've got gloves on, they've got a coat on, it's obviously cold, it's wintry, the leaves are off the trees. It's bright, but it's still quite stark. So we're learning a lot from this picture. And it came down, again, I'm brutally honest with you because that's where I am, it came down to a choice between the two in the end. We then sort of re-voted, and the ones that got all of us voted for were this photograph and that photograph over there. So it's not, again, that the others didn't get votes, it's just that these were the ones that the three of us consistently voted for. So it became a decision between this one and that one. And then it was very interesting because I thought that my co-judges would very much go for this one, that one being abstract and very much a mood piece. And a lot of people might just look at that and think some piece of old dead wood, and why on earth would you bother to photograph that, So I thought they would gravitate easily towards this one as a favourite, but in fact we had quite a discussion about whether this or that should be the overall winner. It wasn't the I have to say, I don't think they were quite so interested in the field as I was. In the end, it was pretty much a split decision, but we decided to gravitate to this one being the winner. And I think that the two ladies who I was judging with were very much about the mood and the way that they wanted photography to communicate to them. And they didn't want to be driven by the constructs of composition and technical aspects, such as things like this or the too much nonsense at the top of the blue tip picture. They really wanted to be instantly communicated to, and they felt that they could both relate to that point and that place in terms of the way it felt. And I wouldn't argue against that. For me, that's very much what photography is about. It's to communicate emotionally, or as I said before, intellectually or technically in some way. So I didn't argue forcefully against them, and we decided that this one would be the winning photograph.
Right, if you're going to shake each other's hand for me, that's it, and then we'll do it. One more. That is fantastic. Thank you.